I know I just made that video about how separation of concerns is a lie. And yes, I do mostly believe that. But there is one place where I really like to keep my concerns separate, and I can't believe I even have to say it. Your database is not where your logic should go. Why are we here? Why do people think that logic and databases make sense? There used to be a concept of stored procedures where you could basically have a function that existed in your database to be called as part of your data process. And it wasn't great. I can't believe that was the norm for as long as it was. And while we, for the most part, moved beyond that and moved our logic to our servers and to our APIs and let the database just be a place where you store state and information, I have started to see a swing back, and some of the things I've seen terrify me. The first I want to talk about is the concept of row-level security. This concept became more popular again during the GraphQL era, where everybody was trying to replace their SQL database calls with a GraphQL layer in front of it. I think this is a bad pattern that set a terrible precedent for the direction of databases going forward. In order for you to expose your database as an API, you have to have a permission set of some form. Otherwise, any user would be able to update any other user's information or access their bank transactions or whatever else your application supports. So in order for that GraphQL to be limited as what someone can or cannot get from your database, you have to build authentication into your database. And the shape of that authentication usually comes in the form of row-level security, which means that you have a procedure or a query that determines whether or not a user can make a query or get access to a thing. And you define on a row who does and doesn't have access to that data. This results in your API code and logic being a lot harder to work with if it's even owned by you at all, because it's the shape of your database and how these things are defined that determines what you can and can't do. And getting this configured correctly in an understandable way is hell. Row-level security and query-level authentication become really hard to maintain patterns really quickly. And just figuring out when you're writing an endpoint what someone can or can't access can be an incredibly difficult challenge. It's horrifying, and I can't believe we're going back to that. It is great as Supabase is as a product. This is one of the biggest flaws it has, that it relies on row-level security so that you can use the Supabase client in your JavaScript code on the front end directly. And now the user isn't calling your service to get information. Instead, the user is directly calling your database through Subabase's layer. And I don't think that makes sense. Users and databases should not interact. There should be a layer between them. And we usually call that layer the API. Another alternative title for this video could have been In Defense of APIs, because that's the point I really want to make here. When you start putting more and more of your logic into your database, it becomes less and less clear what your API's role is and what it does. And as soon as you want to change something, where you change it and where that thing goes becomes harder and harder to understand and manage. I can't believe databases are being used in this way and that it's being recommended as often as it is. I just can't get behind it. And yeah, call me an old head, but I like my databases to hold data and I like my APIs to do the logic. So yeah, call it a spicy take. I'm curious what you guys have to say. Have you used row-level security or stored procedures or any of these other like logic in your database type things? What was the experience like? Did it work out well for you? If you want to hear more about my thoughts on the current state of databases and what I do and don't recommend, I'll pin a video in the corner here all about that. If you've already seen that one or not interested, there's one below YouTube seems to think you'll like. Appreciate you all a ton as always. See you in the next one. Peace.